Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film dors Nicole, or You're Sleeping, Nicole. The thing about most movies about teenagers during the summer, or anyone during a lost summer, is it usually is kind of a backdrop so they can have a plot for something that no one really ever does that's completely unique to a situation, and is never really as memorable and never really captures like the humdrumness, the boredom, the looking at your ceiling, waiting for night to fall so you can go out and party with your friends kind of summer. As much as I loved summer as a kid and loved not being in school, there was a lot of like boredom. There's a lot of times I just laid on the couch all day watching TV and having insomnia because you're not walking around as much, aimlessly going around because there's nothing seemingly to do and nothing that appeals to you. And dors Nicole reminds me more of those summers than any summer movie I've ever seen before. In fact, sometimes when I was watching scenes, I kept remembering summers I had where I was doing things like this. I haven't seen a movie about being a young person in the summer that really captures the summer this way, that captures the boringness of it. Everyone acts like, oh, after that summer I was never the same, or it was the last summer of our childhood, or some nonsense like that. This movie really captures the emotion of summer, the mood of summer, better than I've seen a lot of movies do, unapologetically, but also kind of showing how in summer, when you think of, oh, I don't remember that part of the summer, all the days run together, that lazy, laid-back emotion that summer really is, and you get through both the mood of this movie and its protagonist, Nicole. A girl named Nicole who, after her college graduation, has returned to her parents' suburban home and their suburban neighborhood to live. While they have decided to go on a trip on vacation, she has stayed home to have the house to herself while she works at this used clothing thrift store kind of thing, which honestly looks like a Salvation Army, but they never call it a Salvation Army. But for all due purposes, I think if you see it, you go, that's a Salvation Army, so whatever. And she's just hanging out there with her friend Veronique as they hang out in a Quebec suburb that looks like any suburb. And as they're hanging out and just baking cookies, she comes home and finds her brother and her brother's band rehearsing and have made their house into kind of a makeshift recording studio for their very local sounding small band that you're kind of used to in suburbia. This is one of the first movie bands that really sounds like a local band. It's a band you can imagine yourself seeing in a summer if you're bored on a Saturday night. And they're all just hanging out as Nicole is just wandering around suburbia, gets a credit card in the mail and decides to buy tickets for her and her friend Veronique to Iceland. They buy the tickets, but then Veronique backs out because Veronique has a job at, I'm assuming, a law office. Nicole's just drifting throughout suburbia and drifting through the summer as days turn into nights, and she has trouble sleeping and kind of moping around, wondering what to do with this slow, seemingly endless summer. I think that idea of a summer that just keeps going and you're just kind of killing time, even though you like it a lot more than school, obviously, is something that's more of the summer of being an older teen, or in Nicole's case, being someone out of college. The first summer out of college is a weird summer because your last summer should have been the summer before, but you're kind of holding on to it because you kind of just want to have a crappy job so you can have that one last time to have a really cool summer before you really have to enter the adult world. But you kind of feel like a loser because you know you need to start making money and adulthood has already started. And college in itself is kind of like an extension of childhood in a lot of ways, and it's not entirely growing up. Not to say you're not mature if you go to college or something, but it's like you're continuing to be in school, you're continuing to be supported by your parents, and then when you get out of that, that first summer is often really rough when you're just kind of lazing about in suburbia looking for the point in what you should be doing next. It really does kind of have this milieu, this mood of this movie. It feels very familiar to me, but it also reminded me of all those summers in high school where I would just take the long walk just to take it because what else was I gonna do? And almost like you both like it and you both kind of get sick of it. You like it that you're not being on a set schedule, but you don't know how to set a schedule. So I was just like walking around aimlessly looking for things to do, coming up with bizarre ideas, and that's kind of what she does in this movie. And I love how this movie captures that. It can feel like a very pointless movie. It's a film that doesn't necessarily really have a plot. It almost feels like a character piece and a mood piece about a kind of a summer, and I think that's really interesting to capture, mostly because I've never seen it captured so well before in a movie, and it captures something about summer that when I think of summers of my youth, I always thought I was an odd man out when I look at the movies about summers. Like, I should be having a good time and drinking beer on a water raft or something. And Two Dors Nicole reflects the kind of summers I had as a young adult when I didn't go back to suburbia a lot. I only came back for one summer in college. And that summer was a weird summer because you'd still have to go to family stuff. But then I'd go out drinking with my friends. You'd get really wasted and then wake up at 3 o'clock. But then still you're in suburbia with all these little kids and stuff. It's a weird emotion. It does make you kind of feel lazy and comforted because you can still go back to the bedroom you grew up in. Your parents have hot pockets at your disposal at any time that you don't have to financially take care of. And going back to that in college feels like you can just go back to that safety net. But there's kind of a lazy, relaxed, purgatory stasis to that this movie captures. I think Nicole's stuck in that. She doesn't really get consequences to her actions. Obviously with the credit card, how she ends up losing her job at the thrift store, she feels really apathetic, like, well, who cares? And her character's mood really matches the flow of the movie. You could think of that cliche of someone who's like, oh, I don't care about anything, but that's not exactly her. She just feels like someone who's like monotoned in their nature, trying to get through the summer, really trying to have something to do, to have fun, to have interaction, while still kind of going into like the deep existentialism of summer. This is a film from Quebec. It's a Canadian film. It's a film in French. It's not a film from France. It doesn't exactly feel like a French film. In some ways it does. Certainly the character of Martin, who's this little boy who Nicole used to babysit, but now he has an adult voice, an older Frenchman voice. It's kind of funny. It's the only time the film really breaks its reality. That feels like a weird French movie type of thing. I like that little character. It's kind of a weird thing because nothing else in the film is really like that. He has this poetic way of talking and this older man voice and this 10-year-old body, and he's trying to like hit on Nicole. Is very amusing. Elements like that feel like a French film, but the rest of it feel like something different, like an American independent film mixed with a French film, mixed with an art film. Particularly how moody it is reminds me of that. The director of this film, Stéphane Lafleur, I think, is really good at understanding mood and setting and themes with character, more than I can think with a lot of directors, and I think he really captures that with his protagonist that just wraps it all up into a really kind of low down, low keyness to this film that is really its secret and its key and what makes it so good. And especially the performance of Julianne Cote as Nicole. She's really good at playing Nicole and playing this laid back 20-something with nothing to do but kind of okay in her kind of suspended animation of maturity. And a lot of people would probably look at someone like Audrey Plaza, who can kind of do things like this, but she's so much in a different league than that. What she captures in this performance is not just that kind of personality, but that kind of mode. Throughout that performance, she gets why exactly you'd want to go back to, mom and dad's bedroom all over again. Like, she's kind of okay with it. And even if her friend isn't and her brother's just there temporarily, she's still gonna be there again. And I think that's part of why she can't sleep, why she's so bored, why she kind of just doesn't have consequences. It feels like she's just stuck in this weird zone. It's kind of like in Groundhog Day when he just starts killing himself because there's no stakes anymore. She's kind of stuck in that milieu. I actually like almost all the Martin was good, especially whoever does Martin's voice, and the brother and his band were very good. A lot of people said this is a film, you're not exactly sure when it takes place, but some characters do have cell phones, and I saw texting, so obviously that had to have existed, so it wasn't too long ago. I don't know when exactly it is. It doesn't really seem to matter. Especially it doesn't seem to matter because when you're in that mode in the summer, it doesn't feel like you're living in a certain age. It feels like just time is just expanding on and on. And this film really takes advantage of that. In a lot of ways, you could just look at this as like a silly, weird art movie, but it kind of represents more than that. It represents a certain mode, a certain mood, a certain kind of summer. One of the things I like about movies is movies that tackle different feelings, different emotions, and are just different kinds of films. And I think Du Tour's Nicole does that. And I think it shows a different side of youth. Everyone, when they think of youth and they think of a film about youth, they think of it nostalgically. And in a way, when I looked at this film, I was viewing its take on summer nostalgically. But it wasn't because, oh, that's the summer I grew up. It reminded me of suddenly wanting to run down the street just because I'm bored, because I need that release. Half the movie I was thinking about that emotion through the summer and lying on my bed looking at the ceiling, wondering if I look at this long enough, will it suddenly turn to another hour because I'm kind of bored and it's before work. Is it kind of summer that was the summer I remember. I think there's been so many films that have tried, and I think dors Nicole wraps you up in that emotion and makes it feel so real, and I hadn't felt that in a long time. An adult summer is not the same as a teenage summer whatsoever, and it reminded me of the good parts of summer and the boredom of summer and the humdrumness of summer, and the idea of like there's a part where her and her friend are riding their bikes through a field, and they're like, where are we going? And they don't even really know. And that's kind of like what summer is when you have some friends and you're just hanging out and you're not sure what you're doing, but you're just doing it. And that's a cool time in life. And it's obviously a very suburban middle class idea. It's an idea and mood that I'm glad is represented, and represented by such a good character for that. Nicole is a little lost and isn't exactly sure what she's doing, but having her find it feels a little too pedestrian and easy. Having her just not sure where this is going to go, and hopefully maybe one day getting out of it, is a lot more interesting and a lot more thought-provoking, and it makes you think inward. A lot of this film I was thinking inward, and I think the way this film frames all this works exactly within the thought process I was having while watching this movie. It was quite an internal experience, just like Nicole herself, and seeing her go through all these things and see unique things and see weird things that you wouldn't normally, because who would have the time, but you're noticing all these weird quirks in your neighborhood and weird people driving around playing whale songs and all sorts of odd things. It captures all of that, and this film captures it with perfection. It captures a mood and a low down, low keyness, lazy summer that you're not exactly sure when it's going to end and what the point is, but you sure as hell enjoyed it rather than being in school and rather than having that structure that you're used to. And I think that's one of the things I really like about this film, is that it captures a part of youth and emotion, but captures it in the right way for that kind of mood and for that kind of character. And it makes me glad I wasn't sitting there with more of a structure and what is mandated for a movie about teenage summer, and instead actually ends up making more sense to the summer that I actually experienced, and I'm sure a lot of people did experience, when you don't have, you know, camp and a job and you're just hanging out, both waiting for it to end and enjoying its lazy days falling into nights quality that makes summer such a unique holiday and makes dors Nicole such a unique take on it. So if you have seen dors Nicole and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.